Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Ben from Universal Audio, and I apologize for the audio. My mic gave out right when I hit the live button this morning. My good microphone gave out, so you're gonna have to listen through some webcam audio. I know it's very embarrassing as an audio engineer to have this as my audio for today, but deal with it. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Welcome back to great office hours. We've got a killer week of shows for you guys. So today we're going to answer a bunch of you guys' questions. I've got some cool stuff to show you around reamping using Apollo, as well as some more ATR tricks that we haven't already featured. And then tomorrow we've got Oliver from Spitfires coming on and showing us how he does horn and string arrangements, building on Lewis and Will's track with Fab DuPont on a very special Tales from the Switch episode. And then, hopefully you guys all got this email last week. Thursday and Friday, we have a 2-day recording masterclass with Jakir King. Where he's going to be recording a band, vocalist, and showing off how to use Unison plugins all in real time, and answering you guys' questions all along the way, comparing different preamps. It's going to be a real fun recording masterclass. And hopefully you guys also saw in the email, we're going to be giving away exclusive UAD coupons. Actually, they're worth a lot, but they're going to go really fast. So I would highly recommend being there, having something loaded up in your cart ready to go, because it's going to be a really good deal for anyone that's looking to pick up some new UAD plugins. But yeah, guys, again, apologies for the slightly less than stellar audio today, but hopefully the content will make up for it. And to help me with that, we've got Drew and Matt. How you guys doing?
Good. How you doing, Ben?
Good. Good. People can't hear you either. My loop, it's fully broken. Let me see if I can quickly capture audio this way.
Check
now,
1
guys.
2.
Check
Testing.
1 2.
Good.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Hi, Danielle.
There we go,
Hi,
guys.
everybody. Hi, everybody.
Creating new loopbacks in real time. All right, guys. This is everyone on the call today has been having some weird audio stuff. So
Yeah.
it's one of those
cursed
Mondays. Nice. All right, cool. So backing up through the questions, I already saw some good stuff coming in. Some feature requests, as usual. People asking about sidechain, quantized length, yep. Luna for PC, of course. Can't be a Monday without that.
Oh, we got a shout out to Olivier for helping a user on Facebook.
Nice.
Veteran, yeah. So shout out to Olivier, our support guy in Europe.
Is there a video of anybody linking 2 boxes from our DSP? There's a ton of video. Any video that you see me in. No, I'm just kidding. I've done a few standard ones. But yeah, all of us, me, Drew, Matt, we've all got multiple Apollos in our setups. There's actually a great video. It's a little bit older now, so some of the software looks out of date, but Fab actually did a video where he set up a studio using a multi-unit setup. And the same principles apply to the modern ones. It's with an Apollo, it's shockingly easy to expand a system.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's the beauty of that driver. The Apollo expanded driver it just works. It aggregates devices automatically as you connect them and disconnect them. So it's super quick and easy to add devices. They just you just turn them on, they work. Super simple.
Yeah, and of course you can combine Apollos with satellites. So like in my setup over here, I've got 2 Apollo racks, 2 satellites, and a twin there in the back. So a ton of DSP, but again, like Drew said, it just kind of all connects together and works right out of the box, which is really great.
Yeah, the only thing you have to watch out for is there's a 6-device limit, right? So there's 6 total devices, 4 of which can be Apollos. So you can have 4 Apollos and 2 satellites. And then of those 4 Apollos, one of them can be a desktop. So that's X4, Twin, or Apollo Solo. So those are the only limitations. But otherwise, you can build a giant system with tons of I/O and tons of DSP.
Imagine if you did that all with like X16s. Yeah, you'd have I/O for days.
Yeah, you would.
I saw a question asking about the Corning Thunderbolt cable, and
Yeah, lots of good answers in there already. There's lots of people who, and just you can use the optical cables, which I don't believe the Thunderbolt 3 versions of the opticals have started shipping just yet. Maybe they have, but I do know that like you can use the Thunderbolt 2 opticals with adapters on the ends, and that works just fine. So if you really needed that long run.
Yeah, we do that all our trade shows at NAM and AES and stuff, and it works great.
Yeah, a great cable. I've got one. That's how I get to the back of my room with the twin is a optical cable. A bit of a deep dive on the Echoplex. Just telling you guys, this is a Monday morning. My speakers are on a little bit, and since we're on a webcam mic, we were getting analog delay on you, Drew.
Oh, cool, awesome.
All right, tape delay. It's actually it's a fitting type of delay. It's basically a reamp delay. Coming out of the speakers back through the mic.
We just did a social media post over the weekend. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was a guy playing sax into the tube. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
Awesome.
real tube delay.
Yeah, real pipeline delay.
Exactly. Nice. Sorry, I had the chat scrolled up, so there was a lot of comments about the delay. Oopsie daisies. Just one of those days, guys. One of those days. Happy Monday, everybody. All right. So, how to record 12 channels with ARM active? Drew, you're the ARM master. How do you do 12 channels with ARM?
Yeah, well, there shouldn't be an issue it depends on the device. Maybe they've got a Silver Apollo, which one of the Silver Apollos, you can put a Thunderbolt card in them and use them with Luna. However, they do, because of their insides, their inner workings, they are limited to 10 ARM paths or ARM channels, whereas other rack Apollos can do up to 16. So yeah, so the only time you might hit a limit is if you're on a Silver Apollo and you've got ARM effects too. So you have to be a little bit careful. It's somewhat limited there. But if you have any of the newer Apollos, you shouldn't have an issue because you can do 16 ARM channels per device.
Nice.
And I think twins are 10. The desktops are 10, something like that. It's in the manual, by the way. This is all in the manual. I believe it's called available ARM paths or available ARM channels. If you search that in the manual, you'll find the page for it.
Yep.
Nice. Will those codes be good for Luna extensions too? So yeah, the coupon codes we're going to be giving away this week. As I remember, the show is highlighting Unison, so it's going to be Unison plugins only for the coupon codes. So be looking in the Unison category to find the ones that are getting the good deals. I found that doing a bounce in console tracking mode goes much faster. Anyone else notice this? Interesting. So bouncing offline in console tracking mode or bouncing in real time? Because I imagine in real time it happens in the same amount of time, hopefully. But
Yeah.
if it's in offline, that'd be interesting. Any Luna updates announced today? No updates to announce today. We are getting close, though, to having some updates to announce. Very close. Yeah, he's doing it offline. Oh, that's... Drew, I don't know. Have you played around with that at all?
No, I have not. That's an interesting little data point. I would just, I would zip up that session, Dropbox it to the team, throw it in feedback, see if they can repro it. That would be an interesting little, probably just a quirk, but that would be something I'm sure they'd want to see if it's reproable, in-house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who creates the videos for all the plugin launches? We use a bunch of different creative people. So we've got some people up in Seattle that we work with. That just did like the Apollo Solo campaign. I've got an incredible animator over in New York City that we work with for some of the animated ones. And yeah, we do some in-house. It's kind of a wide range of people. But yeah, the level of creativity that we put into those plugin trailers we have a lot of fun doing it. So we hope you guys have fun watching them too.
Yeah, it's the team does amazing stuff. I'm in awe of them every release.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's, Drew, if you don't mind, let's go ahead and let's dive into some of the stuff we had planned out here. So what we wanted to show you guys is some reamping workflows using Luna and Apollo, obviously. But, so we recently released a reamping video on our YouTube channel that we cut, what was like last year with Tyler from Music Is Win, where we're using X4 and reamping sounds in real time. But I wanted to have Drew show you guys how to do that with some DI guitars that you already have in a session, and then how to break those out and transform into something else.
Yeah, so let me start out by, I just have a simple demonstration for you here. Nothing super fancy. I want to want to start by, I just took a couple of pictures of the setup, which is, obviously a little easier than trying to show things in real time. So, one of the things that that you need to be aware of with reamping is that it needs to be done technically correctly, right? There is a method to it and a science to it that you want to adhere to. So I took a couple of quick pictures.
So you're talking about levels, right? Because basically, like guitar level, the level that an amp is expecting out of a guitar, it's actually pretty small. It's not a
Yeah.
lot of voltage.
Yeah.
It's also a high impedance.
Yes,
So,
yeah, I was just going to say you said level, and that's one of the things. It's really a trifecta here. When you think about what a reamp box basically does, what a DI box does in reverse. So,
mm-hmm,
a DI box takes an instrument level, high impedance, unbalanced signal, right? This is what you're coming out of a bass and coming out of a guitar or certain older synths and stuff, and that's what the amp is expecting. It's expecting that high impedance signal at a specific level and so forth. So when you go to reamp, you need to reverse that. So levels are one part of it. So in the picture here, you can see that I'm coming out of a line output, and this is a TT patch cable, but it's the same as if you were coming directly out of the back of the Apollo. That is
mm-hmm,
a balanced low impedance line level device,
mm-hmm.
and so that is. You need to reverse that. So this is the DI box does. I'm sorry, the reamp box does that. So this is the first step, coming out of your balanced line level low impedance into the reamp box.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, it's a radial X amp. And
Yep.
then on the other side, you get all three of those things taken care of for you. You now have a high impedance instrument level um, unbalanced signal. So you've now converted the signal back to the type of signal that the amp is expecting. And in fact, that the amp really needs. I mean, if you just take line level and blast it to an amp, it's just not going to be the right handshake there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this one happens to have two outputs, so you can have a direct out and an isolated transformer isolated out, and it has this cool little level control. So you do have some trim, the ability to trim how hard you want to hit the amp. So you actually can kind of clean up the amp a little bit if you want to on that end.
Yeah, which is,
And then
and of course,
course,
in the goal, right, is to have it kind of be at unity. So you typically want like what your DI came in as to be the same level as what's coming out. Which
yeah,
I find it for my box it's the same way. We're setting it like 50% on that. Tends to give me the right level in the gain stage and coming back out of it.
yeah, yeah. So you definitely, but you have some room to play with it, so you
Mhm.
can hit the amp a little bit harder.
Have you ever done this actually with a passive DI box running
Yeah,
in
yeah,
reverse?
yeah. Passive DIs will work in reverse, of course, without any of the controls. An active DI box won't do it, but yeah, you can. That's something you can do in a pinch. Um, but I kind of like, the radial X amp that I've had this for years is nice because it has has that little level control. It has a ground lifting in it, and then it also has the ability to have a separate output as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the example, we're just going into, my JCM 800, 100 watt from, I think, 1983 or something this guy is. And then, of course, I mic'd up a cabinet, but then I ultimately wound up just going back to aux because it was just, it was just so nice to be able to go to just sort of run into aux. So that's the
But
technical side
yeah,
of it. That's
so
the
hopefully
connection side.
hopefully everybody here in chat, let me know if you guys are confused at any point of this. Just raise your hand, let us know. And because the whole idea here is, to get you guys really set up with everything you need to know to be able to reamp guitars. So yeah, line level into a reamp box is always recommended. There's so many good
Yeah.
reamp boxes. I recommend those over trying to do the passive DI trick, which does work, but it's as soon as you have an active DI box or for me, I don't know about you, man. I never got the same results I wanted. I had trouble gain
Yeah.
staging it so
Me
much. Like
neither.
I'd had to come into it super soft. So like having that level
Yeah.
knob on the reamp box really does seem to help. But yeah, it's essentially you're knocking down the voltage a ton, raising the impedance of it so that the guitar amp is seeing what it thinks is a guitar. It just happens to be a signal coming out of Luna.
Yeah, I dare say a lot of people have probably tried reamping and weren't mindful to these technical considerations and thought it didn't sound right or didn't feel right. And if you do it wrong, it won't sound right. It won't feel right. You'll be sending the wrong kind of signal to an amp, and it just won't have that same, that same feel. And the impedance matters because the amp is
Hmm.
expecting that and all that. So,
Exactly.
um, so that's the technical side of it. And by the way, just before we actually do any reamping, in the session that I've chosen for today, just turn off my snap. You'll notice that it was tracked. This is something I've been doing for probably, 15 plus years, where anytime I track guitar or bass, even if I mic a cabinet, I'm always taking a DI.
Hmm.
And this, of course, allows you to reamp. But even if you don't plan on reamping, as you can see here, one of the cool things about capturing the DI
Hmm.
is, and I just chose this specific staccato part, is, if you look at the drums up here, a lot of times your guitar, your distorted, the mic'd up cabinet is
Ah.
you can't see transients, right?
Nope.
Yeah, you just don't, you can't tell where these things are often, right? And so even if you don't ever plan on reamping,
Hmm.
capturing the DI is super handy because it allows you to see, oh, okay, here's, the guitar player landed a little bit, here's the transient, they're a little bit out in front of the drummer there. And so it helps you with editing, and it helps you to just sort of visualize the feel. And then, of
Dude,
course,
that's
yeah.
there's Drew's tip of the week right there, guys. That actually I kind of thought of this in the past, but never really put it together like you just did, of like how important having that DI, because it's so much clearer about where
Yeah.
transients are.
Yeah,
Um,
especially if you're talking about super high gain things. This particular session is a rock, pop rock kind of thing. So it's not quite, but sometimes those real high gain things, it's a 2x4. The guitar's a
hmm.
2x4 because there's so much saturation that you can't see. But even in there, you can't really tell where the transients are. And then certainly on a thing there. So it gives you a nice like editing guide.
Dude, yeah,
Yeah.
there, ladies and gentlemen, there it is. Drew's fantastic. All right, continue on with the reamping, but that
Yeah.
as an editing tool, man, that is so helpful.
Yeah, cool. All right, cool. So yeah. So yeah, even if you don't plan on reamping, capture those DIs because
Hmm.
they're just your friend when you're editing.
Yep.
Um, okay, so let's get into the technical part of or how we want to reamp in Luna. And maybe this is better looking at this in the mix window. So here I have the spoiler alert. The trick here is to use the cues, right?
That's it.
This
Hmm.
this is the best way to do it. I've seen some users putting videos on YouTube how to interact, how to use external effects and external outboard gear with Luna, and I see them doing it with sends, and I see them doing it with the outputs, and
Hmm.
that works, but it's probably not the best idea because those are the native parts of Luna. So the outputs and the sends are in the native mixer, and they're subject to the delay compensation engine of Luna. So I purposely put in a couple of soothes here
Hmm.
these are fairly high latency plugins. Um, and so instead, what you want to do is you want to use the cues.
Yeah.
And in this particular example, so here's my chorus guitar DI, and you'll see that I've got it going out of Q4. And if I go to my Q output pop over, you're going to see that Q4, it's probably kind of hard to see, but trust me, Q4 is
Hmm.
mirrored to line output 5 and 6. And right, of course, that's what I have up here. I have line output 5 and 6. In this case, I'm just using 5 to go into my reamp box.
Hmm.
So the cool thing about the cues is that they're in the DSP part of Luna and your Apollo. So while they're not perfectly phase accurate, it's basically like, using the advantages of ARM mode while
Yeah.
reamping. And that makes it so that you can do this in real time and you can monitor it, audition it, and really you don't, I mean, it's like we're talking a few samples anyway. It doesn't even need to, you probably don't even need to compensate for it once you've printed the track. But
Hmm.
of course you always can if you really want to be super picky about it,
Yeah.
to
But
check on that.
if it's only a couple samples, like that's not even a full bit of a waveform in a sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I've done this, but many times, and I don't feel the change, so it feels fine to me. So,
Yeah.
but of course, everybody can do their own little loop back tests and figure out what they need to correct or not correct.
Hmm.
So, so I've got, I have this at unity gain. So I
Yep.
did the cue is going out at unity gain. It's going out through that thing, and then I've created a reamp track.
Hmm.
And in my case, the reamp track, if I highlight that, where's my where I lost my navigation channel. Here we go. Inputs. Yeah, so here's my reamp channel, and I've got it set to come up on the SPDIF of my Apollo. That's coming through there. And then I did actually go ahead and put the API Vision channel strip, which is, this plugin, I love it.
Can't do guitars without it.
Can't do guitar, and and the reason why I did it was I like the saturation, number one, and I have a really soft gate on it, so that while you're working, you don't have to listen to amp hiss. And then it's just a matter of and I'm just going to hit play here a little bit, and you can see, first of all, my DI track is muted because I have it's a pre-fader send to the cues, so I don't want or need any of the the original signal going to it. And then it's just a simple matter of hitting record, right? Super simple. In this case, I chose to bring it on a stereo track because it's aux, and like aux in stereo is just glorious. That room tone is super nice and something you pretty much always would want on any track.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I think that about covers it.
That's the essential part. So it's connecting an audio track. And like Drew mentioned, using the cues is kind of one of the easiest ways to do it, but it also seems to be the most accurate. So Drew, did you experiment with using just like because now Luna does do delay compensated analog outputs. So in theory, you could have set the output of that track from main to line 5, 6. Is there any difference in
I haven't actually done that test. I have not done that test since 108. I was so used to the idea of doing it on the cue path that I've never. But yeah, you're right. Now as of 108, with the analog outs being delay compensated, it shouldn't have mattered. For me, it's just always felt like I don't know. That's just the way I got into the habit of doing so. But yeah, you're right. I should totally try that. I'm gonna put that on my list.
Nice. So got a question here from Kevin. What's the RMS level of a DI signal, by the way? I mean, if you patch the DI into a mic pre and gain it to line level, you have no RMS reference anymore, and it changes the way the amp sounds when you're reamping. Absolutely correct. So there's no like, I guess if you used a preamp that you knew exactly the gain value coming into it, you could do some math to figure it out. But that's really why the reamp boxes all have a trim on them, so you got to season it to taste. So if you're going for a clean thing, you want to roll that back until you're getting a clean signal back. But yeah, this is kind of the hard part, is to get it perfectly 1-to-1. This is what the guitar level would have been going into it. You got to guesstimate it by using either the trim on the box, or in Drew's case, you can actually change the cue. The amount that you're sending out to the cue is also a spot that you can adjust the gain staging going back into the guitar amp.
Yeah, and that's one of the things there to my thinking is that interaction is captured at that's what part of unison, right? So that's part of the trick. One of the tricks, and we've done it many times on the stream, where you plug something into the high Z input, put a unison plug in the unison slot, and bypass it. Because the moment you do that, you have now taken that out of the equation. Because unison is taking care of the gain staging and the impedance matching, and you now know, hey, I'm capturing the DI basically at unity, and then when you go back out of the reamp box at unity, you can feel pretty sure that you're hitting the amp like you would have had you plugged directly into it. So that's another benefit of unison, is it kind of takes that guesswork out of the equation.
Absolutely. I think as you've been talking here, Drew, I have figured out a way that I can patch my.
Am I still in the Echoplex, by the way?
No, I took you out of the Echoplex.
Okay, all right, good.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Let me see. I think, guys, because I wanted to build on Drew's example here and show you guys how to do real-time reamping. A little bit of a repeat of what I did on the X4 video, but different and new. So let me just check, see if. Cool. All right, you guys will be able to see and hear what I'm playing. There might be a touch of delay, but just know that delay is not actually happening to me in real time. So building on what Drew did, I've got my Luna session here. So I'm doing this in a real-time fashion. So I've got my guitar here, just plugged it in through all my pedals in the back of the room. out of the pedals in the back of the room into the high Z input of my Apollo. I could have plugged it into my Twin, but I already had the cable run up here to my X8. So, and of course it's inappropriately labeled OPZ. Don't trust that. That's my guitar. I'll come back to the unison slot here thing in a second. I've already added some inserts again to kind of show you guys some cool tricks that you can do once you're doing this. And then, just as Drew showed, using the Q output. Now, especially since I'm doing this in real time, it's super important to use the Q output. If I were
the regular outs wouldn't work at all, right?
Exactly. Since I'm in ARM mode to keep this all low latency, there is no if I use this output, it'll bypass it. It only goes to the Qs and to the outputs in ARM mode. So come over here to my Q outputs. You can see I have Q2 routed to my Apollo Twin, line 3-4 right here. So then I've got a 1/4-inch cable coming out of my Twin into my reamp box, out of my reamp box into my guitar amp, out of my guitar amp into my aux as well. Hopefully you guys all follow that. If not, again,
everybody's hitting skip back. Everybody's
exactly.
hitting skip back.
Skip back on this one, or again, this is super similar to what we set up with Tyler, Music as Win, reamping in real time with the X4. This is the same sort of signal flow, but instead of having a good guitar player here, you're stuck with me. So yeah, it's gonna be some funky delays because of the way I had to reroute my audio here today for you guys. But trust me, this is coming through in real time on my end. So a couple of tricks here. That's same signal flows, Drew. I can just play, record. This allows me to record both the DI and the guitar amp at the same time, so I can get the. Again, you can see, to Drew's point, Drew's tip of the week, hashtag. By having the DI, I've now got some incredible transients to be able to edit with that, having gone through the amp, through the distortion, which is essentially a overpowered compressor, all those transients kind of disappear. So having these two both recorded at the same time, super helpful. For doing guitar tracks just in general, this is kind of a great way of doing it. But now, here comes some of the cool tricks that you can pull off. So one of them, as Drew mentioned, was using the unison slot. And as you can see, I've put in raw, the rat pedal. And Matt and Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, but by putting this in the unison slot, it changes the impedance of my input to match a guitar pedal. Correct?
Correct.
So some of them will. This one, notice how when you push the stomp box, the power button actually disables.
Mm-hmm.
So in this one, when you disable the plug-in, no impedance interaction is happening. But I believe the Tube Screamer,
Tube Screamer definitely does it.
Yeah, that one you can actually disable the plug or the pedal, but the plug-in itself stays active and the impedance interaction still happens like that.
That's interesting. I wonder why the raw is unique in that way. Maybe it was something having to do with the way that unit did its bypass or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it may be related to the hardware. I'm not entirely sure. But this one, this will definitely give you the impedance interaction, but not the tone of the TS overdrive.
Yeah, that's the one I've always used for that.
All right. Well, I learned something this morning. I'm learning so many things this morning. This is it.
Yeah, me too. I never knew that about raw. Yeah.
So of course, if I want more drive, I can do that. But now, if I turn this off, I've now captured the impedance. My guitar is seeing. I'm going through a bunch of pedals upstream, so there's probably a buffer in there that's already ruined this whole perfect interaction. But this is the way to make sure that the unison input is working as expected for guitar. Similar to Drew, except instead of Drew had this on his aux return coming back from the amp. He was using a gate. Since I've got the control here, what I'm doing is I'm using the API again for a real gentle gate, but on the input side. So now my guitar, the signal coming out of my guitar is what triggers the gate. And I'm using this down here in the monitor effects, so it's not getting committed. So I'll be able to record just the raw audio off my guitar, and then I'm still able to gate it going out into the amp. Again, just to get rid of that little bit of buzz and hum that comes through. But then here's where you can have some fun, get creative, throw in a delay. Tape this. I can't afford. the EP34. Like these are so hard
Yeah,
to
this
find.
thing's
They're
like
so overpriced.
$1,200. Yeah, if
So
you can find them, they're sometimes up to $2,000 sometimes.
yeah, I'll stick with this guy. I'll stick with the EP34. This is it's a great emulation of it. And again, this is allowing me to put in some cool creative tone shaping tools on the front end. But again, I'm just monitoring these. So what's going to be captured on my audio track when I press record, just clean guitar. But then my aux is capturing this with all the sauce already baked into it. Um, so that's how you do it with guitar. And then as I was kind of thinking about this to show off to you guys today, one of the other ideas I came up with was you can do this now since I've got this reamp loop set up. There's kind of no limit to what I can send out there. I could send a vocal mic, and more importantly, I can send out virtual instruments. So I hooked up a. We got to record enable. Little Rhodes.
Nice.
Some
Nice.
roads through Mesa. And so yeah, basically now anything I send out to Q2 is going through my reamp loop. And as we mentioned, this is where gain staging becomes really important because I can use this Q knob to clean it up. So now I'm kind of coming in a little under the distortion, whereas if I kind of crank it up, drive it a little bit harder. So you really want to pay attention to where this is at and make sure it's matching the tone that you want. Of course, I could, take 2 steps over there and clean up at the amp as well. But this is kind of the classic trick of rolling back the volume knob on your guitar. It's the same sort of deal using the Q output. So that's reamping in real time. Were there any questions I missed while I was busy explaining?
Alan had a question for Drew. Do you prefer to reamp dry and then use UA guitar effects in the mix, or use guitar pedals and then record those through the aux?
Yeah, so what I typically do, I kind of like to mix the old school methods with the new, and that's in my example. You saw that I had a DI track and one audio track. So what I typically do is I use the DI during tracking as a CYA, right? Like it's like then it allows me to take risks with the miking, and in fact, like those guitars, the original guitars, I won't hesitate to take 2 or 3 microphones, sum them together in the analog domain, print them to a track, knowing that I've got that DI right next to me. So I kind of go for it. You go for it in the moment, right? And then use the DI as a sort of a CYA. And so then when it comes to reamping, now I can do whatever the hell I want. That's one of the beauties of reamping is like I do it with bass too. Like I can't remember the last time I tracked a bass amp live. There's just no point in it. It's like track the DI, monitor with an amp sim, and then even if you want to reamp it, you can reamp it like using the methods that Ben and I just showed. And then the cool thing about that is with track versions, I can play the song once through with a mellow amp settings, jack things up, go to a new version and ramp that up. So to answer Alan's question is that that's the beauty of reamping is it gives you the freedom to do whatever you want. So so I go for it during the session, have the DI to as the backup. And then when it comes to reamping, I'll do reamp sessions where the clients know where to be found. It's just me in the studio having fun, playing with rigs, right? I mean, Ben just showed you there's infinite permutations there, and capture whatever feels good in the moment onto a track version. And then when it comes time to mix, you could go to the bridge and go, boy, I wish the bridge was a little more aggressive, and check your track versions, and you've got that more hyped up version there that you can lean back on. So,
Man, that's such a good tip there, because it's kind of it's taking mixing into the arrangement element, right? Of kind of like man, I want the chorus to push a little bit harder. So like, great, I've got either you've already captured it, or if you're there in the moment, you can go back and recapture it again. Or you can split that one off. I do this all the time of like I'll duplicate a section of the DI. So like when it gets to the chorus, I've got my main bass DI kind of going on here, and then I'm like, man, I want the chorus to kind of like punch a little harder, have a little bit more grit to it. Duplicate the track, drag down that DI onto a second track, and then throw the tube screamer, throw the rat, like throw something on there to really give it a ton of edge, and then mix that in underneath it. So you're having the DI there available gives you limitless options. And I've done sessions where I've sent the vocals out through the reamp loop. That way I can, throw on my delay pedals and maybe a little bit of a slap echo or something like that, running back in through the amp, through
Yeah.
the aux to get this cool stereo room tone. So it sounds like the voice is being thrown through an amp out into a room with a bunch of delay on it, and dude,
Yeah.
the space that you're able to get with that is so cool.
Yeah, and don't forget about tuning too. Like this is something intonation. Not all instruments, especially bass, or you go up the neck, they get a little sharp. So capturing the DI allows you to melodyne those, the bad notes, then reamp, right? So you can you have a lot of there's a lot of little lots of benefits to this workflow.
Yeah. Oh man, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, melodyne. And he goes. I mean, on bass, you can throw auto tune. Since you're usually just playing one note.
If it's a simple bass line, the live algorithm of auto tune could get it, and then or if it needs to be fussy, you could do it with melodyne.
I remember that used to bug the crap out of me when, especially like one of my older basses, like the first two frets were so badly intonated. Like I could play an E, it'd be perfectly in tune. I play an F, I'm like almost half a step sharp. And I'm like, I would constantly have to auto tune it.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, cool. So yeah, guys, that's some great little reamping. How to execute, but then also a bunch of ideas that you guys can use in your productions and in your mixes for reamping. But I also promised you guys some ATR tips, and the master of ATR in this sense, which we talked about a lot of hi-fi stuff, right? We showed Fab and Chris. We were going for like pristine ATR transfer. But the cool thing that we haven't gotten to really show you guys a ton of yet is using the ATR as kind of like a lo-fi machine. And Matt, I know this is your jam right here.
Totally. Yeah, I make beats. I make a lot of lo-fi kind of tinted stuff. So yeah, using the ATR as a color box is totally something I love to do.
Hell yeah. So you want to share your screen and let's take a listen. But shows how you get some lo-fi vibes with it.
Right on. So yeah, I've got some stems imported into Luna here. So yeah, I'll just play the beat for you in a second here. But most of the color here is coming from the ATR. A little bit's coming from Neve summing too. But yeah, very minimal processing, just some filters and light bus compression. But most of what you're hearing here is coming from the ATR. So let's take a listen first. And just to confirm, you're getting that coming through, right? We were having some issues earlier.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, so the whole thing's got kind of a dusty, not super lo-fi, but just the right amount, in my opinion. It's got a warmth punch to it, but it doesn't sound very clean and new.
Yeah.
So it almost sounds like something I sampled off a record or something like that, but this was all just virtual instruments that I played and then resampled and chopped up. So I'm kind of making it sound like it was a sample that I found in a dollar bin somewhere, but it's all stuff that I played and recreated like that.
Nice.
So yeah, just to start, let me disable the ATRs that I have here so you can hear just how much color the ATRs are adding. So this is with no ATR processing. And let me turn them on here and you'll be able to hear the difference right away. Yeah, real nice low end bump, but it doesn't get kind of
crunchy.
Yeah, a little bit of crunch. It doesn't get too muddy with the low end bump. It still retains its punch. So yeah, I mean, I'm using a couple of different things here. So the ATR is on my melodics bus, which is just all the different little melodic sample chops that I have going here. I have a rhythm bus, which is my drums and bass. Got the ATR there as well. Got an effects bus, which is a couple little vocal chops and things like that. And then my master bus, and ATRs on all of those buses.
Nice.
Yeah,
so
let me.
I was gonna say, so what's kind of like your go-to settings to really start, giving it that lo-fi feel?
Yeah, I mean, I usually if you're trying to kind of retain some hi-fi qualities, you'd want to do 15 or 30 IPS. For this kind of stuff, I do 7.5 and lower pretty much strictly.
Yeah.
And I really like the 250 tape type. It has that really nice low end bump without getting too flabby and muddy down there. It still retains the punch. And then you'll see even on some buses, I'll drop it all the way down to 3.75, which is like a really noticeable, filters off some high end. It really makes it sound dusty and older.
It's like that's it's funny too, like when you have the tape machine open and you see the reels moving at 3.75, like it looks like it's just everything's going in slow motion.
Yeah, it's just crawling through there. So yeah, let me solo the melody bus. This is what it sounds like just with 3.75. So yeah, it pretty much sounds like a dusty old sample. Let me take that off. A little bit cleaner, there's a little more top end there. And let me cycle through the IPS here so you can really hear the differences. So for example, at 15, still retains a lot of high end. Drop it down to 7.5, lose a little bit of that high end. And then once I go down to 3.75, you can hear it's really pronounced mid-range and really rolls off a lot of the high end, which is perfect for this type of sound I'm going for. And then, yeah, I've talked about the low end bump a bunch, but that's like one of the main things I really like about the Ampex, and you can really hear it on the rhythm bus here. So that's off. A little less crunchy, a little less punchy. Yeah, the kick drum just hits so much harder as soon as you turn it on. So for the drums, I kept it at 7.5 just because I want to keep a little bit of the cymbals in there, still moving the track along. If I drop it down to 3.75, it's you lose a little bit of that hi-hat rhythm. You can really hear that rolled off high end there. Yeah, but 7.5 is perfect for this one. Still get
perfect blend between the two.
Yeah, you're still getting the transients, but it still feels nice and warm.
So Matt, are you going in there? Are you tweaking? You know, we showed off some of the other like adjustments that you can make to like the bias or the playback EQ. Or, are you messing around with those at all, or do you just really focus on the speed and tape type?
Yeah, for this one, I kind of wanted to not rely on like overdriving the input or anything like that. I really just wanted to hear the sound of the tapes and the speed. So yeah, everything's at Unity. I haven't touched any of the EQs here.
Nice.
I haven't touched the BIOS or anything like that. Pretty much all the color is coming from the tape type and the speed.
That's really cool.
That's a good point. I was just say that's a good point when you have that open. Is like some people who, if you're trying to add the ATR to in an existing mix, you might find that low end bump could be a little bit aggressive. So that's where you can dial it back. If you get into the, you get into that paint, that browser part, and you can pull back that low frequency EQ a touch so you get the benefits of the ATR, but it's not going to blow up your bottom end if you've already got that dialed in.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm kind of using the tape speed as a filter in this scenario, but you could also just come in here and use the EQ as well.
Yeah.
A few different ways to get different types of sounds.
But I mean, this is really cool though to be able to show that, man, just how big of an impact the speed, tape type, and head stack, like just those, and there's a reason why those three controls are the ones that you see on here all the time, and not the gain knobs or the saturation knob like we did for the Studer, right? It's like the core to the ATR sound is really dialing in the combination of these settings to establish the sound for either your buses or for your whole mix.
Yeah, and this is pretty, a baseline example. You could take this a lot further by coming in here. If I want a little more crunch on the drums, cranking up the input gain, hitting the input a little bit harder. So there's a lot of places you could take it from here.
Totally.
And if you stack Studer on top of this, if you then put on your source track Studer, you can go next level. You can go next level retro if you really wanted to. You could get it really old school sounding.
Totally, yeah. And in a real mix, that's probably what I would do, is put Oxide or Studer on each individual track as well. But again, I just wanted to really show let the Ampex shine on this one. So one other thing, it's not the extensions, the UAD plugin, but I think it's a pretty cool little trick, especially for lo-fi beats like this. Is I love setting up the Ampex on a send and then putting a reverb after it.
Okay.
And I'll use some pretty drastic settings on the Ampex, lots of wow and flutter. And you get this kind of like really warped, dreamy kind of verb that you wouldn't normally get. So I'm using the Sunbaked cassette. It's a great Buddy Miller preset. It just has the wow and flutter cranked. It's very noisy though, so I turned the noise off. And I dialed back the wow and flutter just a tad, but that's a great starting point for this type of sound. It's 3.75. It's the 3590, just
Just
a little bit
cassette
more,
style.
yeah, a little more muddy, a little less punchy than the 250, but it sounds great for this type of thing.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, that's just the reverb bus.
Nice.
It's just this weird, like,
wavy, weird thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it's really cool for, I mean, this is it going into a reverb. Another trick I'll do a lot is without the reverb, do this as like an intro or a bridge part. I'll send like everything to this and just slam it with this, a lot of wow and flutter. Yeah, there's less drums in it, but this would make like a great intro to drop into the rest of the beat. But then you turn on the reverb and it just makes it all dreamy and crazy.
Wow, dude, that's such a cool setting.
Yeah, so it's may just seem like a tape machine, but it's much more. You can use it for very creative effects.
It's the best slap echo. If you're not using the ATR 102 plugin, I mean, this extension doesn't have this, but if you're not using the ATR 102 plugin as one of your like primary delays, like it does the most amazing widening slap that it just just a hint of it so that it's almost imperceptible. It just takes vocals and goes and shoots them out to the sides. It's awesome.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's this little tape delay section right here. It's another great trick.
Well, I love it. You know, so nice thing is that if you buy the extension, you get the UAD plugin. If you have the UAD plugin, you get the extension. So it's nice to have both options here. And you know, we did. You know, as you noticed, the extension is missing some of these things, like the wow and flutter, the tape delay. So it's good to have those unique features available in the plugin still, while making it lighter weight and able to put it on multiple buses. Because if you guys are experienced using the ATR 102, you would know that putting it on multiple buses, it's a high latency UAD plugin because of all that delay and all the extra processing that goes into the wow and flutter. But it's also it's a bit of a DSP. It takes a fair bit of DSP to run it. So by being able to run this natively now inside the Luna mixer, it's able to move so much faster, and you're able to put it on every bus and kind of mix into it. Which that to me has been the biggest thing. Is like throwing this on at the beginning of my mix, so bring in, like, probably what you did here, Matt, like bring in the stems, kind of route stuff together, throw the ATR on the buses, throw the Neve on some of the buses, kind of like give myself that starting point where you're kind of mixing into these tools. It makes the whole mixing process that much easier.
Totally. Yeah. And I was much more pleasantly surprised working on this session using the extension than I have been working in other DAWs with the UAD plugin, because like you said, it's such a high latency plugin. It's such a heavy DSP plugin that when you start to load, 6 instances like I have here, it can get kind of messy, and especially in a DAW that doesn't compensate for the visual delay. Your timeline will look different than what you're hearing. It gets messy. But in Luna, using the extension, it's just totally transparent in terms of what it's doing. It doesn't bring down your system. It doesn't cause any kind of delay that you would notice. It's great.
Yeah. Got a question on YouTube. Association LA asking, what tape setting do you recommend to knock some highs down from an overall mix? Right. So as Matt showed you, 30 and 15 would still basically retain all of the top end that you'd expect from that tape machine, because that's of course what you would mix to, and you wouldn't want any top end to go away. You would just want to get all that nice goodness. So I would say at the 7.5 level and below, you're definitely starting to take away top end. But having said that, even at 15 and 30, as we showed, you have the ability to pull back those. And I think Ben did some examples of this last week, where the ATR is it's a free compressor. It's a free EQ. So don't be afraid to get into those pains and tweak that top end. So you could be at 30 IPS and then just pull back the top end ever so slightly and get sort of the 7.5 inch top end vibe, but yet the other, benefits of 30.
Yeah, that's what's awesome. There's not one way to do one thing. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to get to the same place, and they're all kind of a little bit different, have their own flavor.
It's such a powerful machine. Also testing out the different tape types. This is the thing I recommended on some of the launch shows, was to really kind of start pulling the stuff up in a mix and really trying to learn for yourself and kind of put it in your encyclopedia of sounds, the different tape types. Because as Matt mentioned, like 250, it's one of the favorite tape types for so many people, because it's got a really beautiful top and bottom end. Like what it does for sounds, it complements so many mixes in such a good way. But then you take up to 456. It's got some of that, but also kind of it's a little bit more mid-rangey. GP9, like each one of these tape types offers a little characteristic, and it's the way that these are emulated. It's not like behind the scenes. It's not just an EQ curve that's changing. It's actually it's how this tape reacts magnetically. So it's a dynamic process, which is why we say this kind of acts like a compressor, kind of acts like an EQ, kind of acts like a saturation. It's a little bit of all these things,
Yeah.
which is that's the magic of tape, and that's the reason why people have. Why in the digital age we've all kind of been looking towards these analog tools is because it offers this je ne sais quoi to your mixes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not just nostalgia. It's not just, oh, that's, it's not nostalgia. It's like these things we did things even though we didn't realize it, and people seem to yearn for it and really connect with it because it triggers things in your brains that makes you think of, I heard a Nat King Cole song on a internet jazz station yesterday. My wife was listening to it, and it was unbelievable. He just sounded gigantic. He sounded
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And I'm like, that's probably a Tube 47, and it's probably back then a 4-track or something, or
Mm-hmm. Probably was
or
610.
straight to 2-track, or who knows,
Yeah,
Yeah, or 610, yeah.
610 console straight to 2-track, probably
Yeah.
most likely. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So those classic tools. That's really what UA. We spent so much effort and time making these tools to sound as authentic to that sound as possible, and now carrying that into Luna, you can already tell, man, just the level of detail and the head start that it gives you on mixing by having summing and tape built in. I'm in the same boat. I'm just absolutely just loving mixing stuff in here.
Yeah, and talk about authenticity. There's not just the 4 tape formulas for every tape speed. The actual tape formulas you have available change based on the tape speed,
Mm-hmm.
based on what type of formulas you'd actually use in a real world scenario with that tape speed. So
Yeah.
there's a whole matrix of different sounds you can get depending on which tape type you select, combined with which speed you select. It's much deeper than it seems on the surface when you
Yeah,
start diving into it.
absolutely. The Gregory says, Matt, you're the man.
Thanks, Gregory.
uh, Nice. Andy Mack says the sound is so good in my cans now I can't get any recording done as it drives creativity though too. Yep. Exactly. Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, Matt. Anything else that you feel like people should know about approaching the ATR 102 for kind of giving stuff a little bit more of a lo-fi vibe?
I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah. I mean, I didn't talk about, pre and post, but that's another thing I'm kind of using to change how I hit the tape.
Mm-hmm.
Like on these individual buses, they're all post. So I'm doing a little bit of filtering and compression before I hit the tape.
Gotcha.
Of course, in the master, it's pre, so that I can hit the tape before my limiter. So yeah, that's another kind of thing that I played around with to get the tone I want. But yeah, other than that, I think that pretty much covers it.
Nice. Just for good measure, as long as we're here, you've got Neve summing across this mix as well. Can we hear a quick before and after with the Neve to see what that's doing to the sound?
For sure. Yeah, and you notice I got all these individual ones and low impedance because I wanted to hit it a little bit harder. So yeah, there's a little bit of tone coming from there too. So here's without Neve summing, but ATR still turned on. And with, yeah, some of the punch is coming from Neve summing as well. Yeah, those two things combined, I mean, if I just made a beat like this in Ableton or something like that without these tools, it would sound so much more cookie cutter than being able to bring it in here and add all this analog feeling processing to something that would normally just be a digital beat.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Absolutely. Killer. Well, Matt, dude, this is a great example, man. Really, really cool to see how the ATR can be used not just to preserve, a mix, but kind of really give it a creative touch. That's the way to do it.
Totally.
Nice. Daniel's asking, any plans for other summing extensions? I love the Neve, but how about something with more of a 50s vibe? Love from the UK.
No, we made the summing extension, and then we're just gonna do one. That's it. Just one.
Yeah,
That's all.
You're gonna give it away just like that, huh, Drew? Huh?
Just one. That's it.
Cannot comment. No comment at this point. But keep an eye out. Joel says he just bought the ATR this weekend. Can't wait to use it. Would it be best to mix into it on a bus or add it in once I get the mix I like for the bus? That's great question. Drew, what's your opinion on that one?
Yeah, it's funny because with the plugin, I previously would have been in the camp of mixing and then adding it because I generally turn the transformer off, which
Mm-hmm.
gets rid of the bump. But with the Luna extension, I've sort of changed my mentality on that, and now I'm mixing into it more. So
Yep.
that's the beauty. That's one of the most amazing things about Luna, that it's completely caused me to rethink how I do things, and which is awesome because it like mixes things up. So I don't know. What's your thoughts, Ben? What team are you on?
I'm team mix into it. You
Yeah.
know, and I've always had this approach, even like with my analog summing side of things too. Like to me, the very first step before I start even like, you know, maybe I'll inspect a track, might listen to a few things, but like the number one thing for me is to get the mix set up, get my environment there, get the things that I know are going to give me a kind of a foundation to the sounds, like the Neve summing, the ATR. If I'm doing analog summing, having my rig kind of all patched in, like that part of the setup phase, you know, which also involves naming all the tracks, creating all the buses, color coding everything, getting myself really organized to get my mix set up. I don't like to start that with just completely blank. Like I love having that with the ATR in place, with the new summing in place. So that way, the
Hmm.
entire time I'm going into those, because the number one most important thing about getting the best results out of these plugins, in my opinion, is the gain staging into them.
Hmm.
Because if you're hitting them super hard, it's going to get crunchy, and it may feel really exciting and good, but then when you listen back to it the next day, you're like, what was I think like? Uh, so you want to really maintain your gain stage into those things, and I find often if I pop them on later, it adds it, you know, like with ATR, it may add too much bottom end to my mix, and then I have to go back and readjust everything. Whereas if I was mixing into it the whole time, I'm getting that low end bump that just helps. It means that I don't have to do less EQing to my kick and my basses,
Yeah.
because the ATR is kind of giving me that lift. And it's, you know, same thing for analog summing, like mixing into the tools. I've already got the lift on the top and the bottom, so I'm doing less work upstream in that sense. So yeah,
Yeah, I totally hear. I hear you on that. The counterpoint to that is, and this is something I try and achieve with my own work, is I like to be, I like to try and if I bypass everything on the stereo bus, it should still be a really good mix. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
so there's always that, like, you have to strike that, between like you should be able to bypass everything on the stereo bus and it still kind of holds up because because that means to me that all the decisions that you had made previously still are valid. You know what I mean? But
And
I'm coming around.
and let me go ahead and end this call because I no, I'm just but that's exactly. This is the great thing about there's no one right way of doing this, and
Yeah,
it all
absolutely.
comes down to you know, whatever gets the sound that you want and it gets you there the right way.
Yep.
Because I 100% completely disagree with Drew.
You do not. You still want your mix to sound good when you bypass the stereo bus chain, right?
Never.
And don't you do that? I still do it. Now you don't care?
No,
Okay.
because
I
I
want my
never.
mix to sound terrible.
Yeah, exactly. No, like forget, you know, all joking aside, because I never take my stereo stuff off. So the only thing I
Yeah.
ever take off is the final limiter when I'm going to mastering. So I'm using a 6 dB limiter at the end of my chain to give me that, or you know, to give the clients an idea of what it's going to sound like once it's mastered. That's the
Yeah.
only thing I ever remove when I go to mastering, because otherwise it's all part, again, it's all part
Well,
of
I
the
don't ever
mix.
remove it permanently. I don't
Uh-huh.
remove it permanently. It's funny because what I like to do is I'll mix on something for a while, and if I get into some groups and some processing and maybe even some stereo bus processing, I'll get it to a certain point, and then the next day I come back and I listen to it, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty good, and then I'll bypass the entire stereo bus chain, and I'll say,
Hmm.
all right, is it still good? Because then it can reveal things that happened at the bus level or at the individual track level,
Yeah.
and then so then I use it as an opportunity or as a quality control to like, okay, am I
Hmm.
leaning in too much of the stereo bus?
Yeah, well, and
Right.
that's so that's where we totally agree, because like the thing that really matters, right, is that when you take something away, if it gets better when you take it away, that's when you know you got work to do.
Yeah, you
That's
got it.
where,
Yeah, right.
which it happens to me, you know, every once in a while, especially with bus compressors.
Yeah,
More often than not, this is a bus compressor thing where like you're mixing into it, you're mixing for an hour or two, and like you're liking it, and then you go do what Drew said, you bypass. You know, I don't. This is maybe I don't do the whole chain, but I'll take out a piece of
yeah,
it to see like, oh crap! I just took the SSL bus compressor out, and my mix just opened up, and it sounds great.
yeah.
I got work to do, and
Let me rethink that. Yeah,
that's where you rethink,
Yeah.
where you're like, what part of it do I like? Do I want to just, you know, adjust the wet dry? Do I need to go upstream and change my gain staging into the final bus? Like that's where you start getting you start problem solving, be having that honesty with yourself to say like, is this actually better right now, or am I just like, is it just louder? Like all of these things, so you can trick yourself into thinking that your mix is great, whereas actually just kind of slammed and choked. So yeah, having that realization, that moment of like clarity of, is it better without?
Yeah.
I know it's better with. All right, great. Moving on. Like,
Yep.
Yeah, it's super important. But yeah, I love mixing into stuff the most. Fight, fight, fight. Nice. I love it. Great. Well, guys, this was a really cool Monday show. Got answered a bunch of questions. Got to show some people some great reamping, some ATR tricks. The good news for all of you guys out there watching is that we've got 3 more shows this week. It's a heavy week. Back tomorrow with Tales from the Switch, highlighting the Spitfire instruments. This is actually the final piece of the puzzle for that song. So we promise after tomorrow's episode, the next step is mixing the song and actually finishing it up. And once that's done, then it becomes a Luna session that you guys will also be able to download. But we're not stopping there. So that's tomorrow's show. Thursday and Friday, Jakir's coming on, and we're recording a rock band live. It's going to kind of walk us through the entire process of recording, and really, focus. It's not so much about recording the entire thing all in one spot, but the big thing we're going to be really highlighting is how to pick microphones, how to pick unison preamps, how to set up for band tracking using Apollos, how to do cues, like everything you guys have wanted to know about tracking a band. And then that's going to be Thursday, and then on Friday we're going to be doing vocals for that same track. So we're really hoping to kind of cover everything that you guys need to know around recording using Apollo and Luna and Unison all combined together. And of course, the extra little carrot on that stick is that we're giving away huge coupon codes for Unison plugins throughout the show. So you got to be there to watch it. These are limited use. I think each code is a single use, so it's literally going to be a race.
Wow! First one to get there.
First one to get the discount gets the discount.
Wow.
We do have a bunch of them ready in our back pockets, so we hope.
So have your favorite plugins in your cart already loaded,
ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Ready to go. Exactly.
Okay.
Man, it's gonna be such a fun session. So it's gonna be our Thursday and Friday show with Jakir, and you guys will be seeing more emails about that to make sure that you don't miss it, because it is going to be a really special program. And so yeah, with that, guys, awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for dealing with our not as, or at least my not as great audio. I think you guys both sounded great. Just me that's all roomy and webcammy. But,
it's fine.
It's office hours.
All good.
It's just Monday morning. It's fine. Well, great, guys. Everybody have a good rest of your week. Hope to see you guys back here tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, and talk to y'all soon.
See you guys.
Peace.